Court Justice Antonio Carpio is leading a coalition of opposition candidates for next year's elections.
Isang Bayan aims to form a unified opposition slate with singular presidential, vice presidential, and senatorial candidates for next year's elections.
The Filipino people deserve a better government. There are Filipino leaders who can do a much better job of running the government, reviving the economy, creating jobs for our people, and defending our territory and sovereign rights in the West Philippine Sea. We in the Isang Bayan will search for these Filipino leaders, unite them into one national slate, and present the Filipino people with a clear choice in the May 2022 national elections.
Opposition figures have launched a coalition that will field its lineup for 2022. Meanwhile, the business sector wants to buy vaccines directly and without restrictions. Is the private sector the country's hope for a faster vaccination rollout? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. And welcome to this Thursday edition of The Chiefs. With us, of course, via Zoom, our Ana Marie Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Luchi Cruz Valdez, the head of News 5, and Robbie Alampay, who left me here all alone off One News. Robbie and the ladies, well, happy Thursday.
Good evening.
Still with you in spirit.
Okay. Well, we just have to
Still
take
with him
precautions.
online.
Well, of course, one of the big stories today was a political development earlier in the day, the launching of a coalition. I suppose that's what they call themselves. And in particular, if you look at the people who are involved, these are people who well, of course, are perceived critical of the administration.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Ano pa mag-segue? Ayan na yung ano natin. Yan na yung guest natin.
Tinignan si
was
Ami.
just-
Akala ko intro na yun.
That was just in case you wanted to add something, you know. Okay. Okay.
Papasok na natin yung guest natin.
Yeah, let's bring in our first two guests for tonight. We begin tonight with Attorney Howard Calleja, or Howie Calleja, and Brother Armin Luistro, the former Education Secretary. They are, of course, with the Isang Bayan Coalition, a group that aims to push for a united opposition in the coming 2022 elections. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome back. It's been a while since we've seen you.
Yes, good evening, Ed. Good evening, Luchi. Good evening, Ami and Robbie. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening,
Good
attorney.
evening, brother.
Yeah. And I can see that there's another extra guest that we have as well.
Oh, yeah. Nasa bahay tayo. Yan ang hirap pag online. Zoom.
Yan ang kinabukasan ng bayan. So hayaan na
Yeah.
natin.
No, we are launching Isang Bayan for her and her generation.
Well,
That's right.
Attorney, let her
Generation
sit in na so she can listen in para she also gets a good idea of what you guys have in store. But let me start off with this po. I suppose you would also expect a bit of criticism by way of the timing of the launching of this coalition, especially coming at this time when the COVID numbers are spiking. And some people have been saying on social media na parang it's either masyadong maaga or parang it could have been done at a better time. I don't know what you think of that. Is it the proper time for this?
Maybe Brother Armin.
Well, let me start by saying, when is the proper time to stand up for the West Philippine Sea? When is the best time to tell the President, naku po, ang dami na po yung pagmumura, ang dami na po yung kill. Baka pwede namang heal.
Mm-hmm.
There is no better time to address the concerns of the nation except this time, because people are hungry, people are hurting, people have no hope.
Brother Armin, are you also representing the De La Salle brothers?
Well, De La Salle and our schools, the De La Salle brothers, have always been at the forefront of every democratic advocacy. And if people see that as being in the opposition, well and good. But we see ourselves as standing on the right. And I think that is part of what educational institutions, what the church should actually be doing. Be on the side of the poor, on the voiceless, and those who cannot defend themselves.
I-follow up ko lang yung tanong ni Ed na why at this time? Why launch at this time?
Yes, sir. Well, we do understand what you're saying, that any time is a good time. But is there any specific reason why you chose to do it now? I mean, all things considered, is there any particular reason?
Well, sa akin naman, at Ami, wala naman, as Brother Armin already said, there's no good time for anything. No, I mean, the pandemic is there, but we also have to understand that we also have to identify and solve the problems, the ills of the nation at the soonest possible time. We cannot wait for this, sabi nga nila, inutil government to continue. We cannot wait for this inutil government to roll out more and more mistakes. That's why we're saying, tama na. It is about time that we have to organize. It is about time that we have to come out in the open and say that we want a united Filipino. All this government did for the past 5 years is divide us. Kaya po kami ay isang bayan. Ang gusto po natin ay tayo po ay sama-sama sa pag-unlad, sama-sama sa ating bayan. We are here as a democratic forces to promote what is best for the Filipino, and hopefully we would have good governance come 2022. We also have to understand na ang filing of candidacy is already in October. That is
Right.
7 months away.
I actually don't think it's early, frankly. In fact, my question would veer more toward the fact that you only have 7 months to go before filing begins. And, screening for candidates, which is something you said you need to do, will take time, right?
Yes, Ma'am Luchi, and that's why as I said, we are doing this at an opportune time, at the soonest possible time. We are sad that there's still the pandemic while all other countries are already reeling and recovering from the pandemic. But tayo sabi nga nila, nasa hulihan pa ng pandemic because of this mishandling of the pandemic crisis of this government. That's why it is about time that we unite and we become as one and we do everything for the best of the nation.
Hey,
Plus, I
brother, as
think-
you said, no, you're trying to unite. You're trying to unite people, and really, this is how people are taking it. The opposition is trying to unite. But you talk about a united opposition, or you're talking about a coalition. That's always an ambitious proposition in Philippine politics. My question is, how do you define the entire universe of opposition at this point? Is it built around the Liberal Party, or is it literally anybody who's not going to run under the administration slate? How wide, how deep, how big is the ambition for a united opposition?
Well, essentially, our chair, Justice Carpio, defined the democratic forces as those who support the Philippine Constitution. And part of the Philippine Constitution says the West Philippine Sea is ours. He defines the democratic forces as those who stand for human rights. That's also in the Constitution. Alam mo, Roby, wala namang nagbago. Ang nagbago, yung wrong interpretation of this Constitution. Using the law to run after the so-called drug addicts without any real justice there. What we're saying is, they could look at us as the opposition, but truly, we stand on the side of the Constitution on what this administration has been rejecting all along. And in one real sense, sila yung naninira, sila yung opposition, di ba? Because have you ever heard a president cursing in front of everyone in public? That's not Filipino. We stand on the side of a Filipino. Meron ka bang narinig na Pilipino na pumapatay at sinasabi sa lahat, kill, kill, kill? That to me is not in the soul of a Filipino. And if they look at us as opposition, as a mumulitika, I do not know what love for country means if we see what we're doing as pamumulitika.
Okay,
Wait, just to follow up on Robbie's question.
I-
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
If I might just follow up, because those broad themes, big themes, all important themes as well, lahat ng Pilipino may iba-ibang litmus test dyan, di ba? I mean, okay, people who will uphold the Constitution, who are for human rights and democracy and so on, but people will be throwing a lot of litmus tests your way. So, for example, what does that mean? Is Trillanes somebody you would consider who upholds human rights and the Constitution and so on? What about Ping Lacson? Does he count as somebody who respects human rights and so on? So you'll be confronted with a lot of these litmus tests. Let me try those tests on you. Ping Lacson, Trillanes, Grace Po, everybody who we presume right now is not part of the Duterte administration. Of course, Leni Robredo, I presume that's a starting point for you. But what about all of and Nancy? What about all of these other people?
Can I start that by saying, Robin, we start number one, litmus test, Constitution, rule of law. Basic example in detail, EJK. Where does, let's say, Trillanes stand with EJK? Where does Lacson stand with EJK? Where does Sara Duterte on the other side of the fence stand with EJK? So doon po tayo magtatanong. Litmus test, again, West Philippine Sea. That is part also of the Constitution. Did the Duterte administration and its enablers, yun na nga, Bongo, Pacquiao, Sara Duterte, did they allow the Chinese to occupy the West Philippine Sea and allow them to continue their use of our sovereign resources at the West Philippine Sea? Nasaan yung other side? Leni Robredo, Ping Lacson, Grace Po, etc. So that is the litmus test to them. And just to add kanina, we are not built on the Liberal Party. If you look at the list of conveners, the list of our members, we don't have any party. Brother Armin is not a card-bearing member of any party. Myself, I am not a card-bearing member of any party, nor any of the conveners. That's why we are built not on a singular party. We are inclusive and we invite all parties. We are built on the ideals of good governance, rule of law, and the respect of the Constitution and the sanctity of the Filipino people and of our country.
Well, Attorney,
But realistically, can you really bring these people together, knowing as how many of them will probably be belonging to either, well, NGOs, who are also political in nature, really, and other political affiliations? And you know, in our last interview here with VP Robredo, she herself admitted na decimated na, no, ang opposition. So are we seeing this now as your effort to bring together groups that are, well, in Tagalog, nagkawatak-watak?
Opo, Lucy, makikita nyo, on the left side, nandun yung Makabayan, Bayan Muna, Akbayan, Gabriela, and all those stuff, nandun sila. On the middle, nandito po kami civil society, church, religious, academe, and on the right side, nadyan pa yung Magdalo. Napagsama-sama po natin yan, the whole spectrum. And as I said, we are inviting also the candidates and their parties, Liberal Party, NPC, NUP, all these parties, PDP, para magsama-sama po tayo. And pag pinili po natin, we come and unite under one candidate, one slate for President, Vice President, and Senators. Ganun po tayo, nagsama-sama po tayo, at hopefully, come 2022, we have one slate to be
But how realistic is that, really? How realistic is that, given that the differences in politics are huge?
Ma'am Lucy, buo po kami. Yun nga, I mean, all of this na nakausap namin, makikita mo, kasama namin doon si Nery Colmenares, doon sa, I mean, in front, makikita nyo, nandun yung Magdalo, sa harap. So, napagsama namin yan. And siguro naman, doon sa mahihilig sa sports, nakita nyo si Brother Armin, kasama niya, katabi niya kanina, si Father Albert Alejo, taga Ateneo. Pati yung Lasal Ateneo, napagsama namin, hindi na nag-away sa NCAA, doon sa amin, magkasama sila.
Mr. Calleja, on the other hand, you are arrayed against the Pacquiaos, the Dutertes, and this is still a very popular president, no? I mean, based on surveys naman. And Pacquiao himself is also very popular. Yung chances nyo, I mean, as Lucy pointed out, 7 months na lang. At actually, within the year, mag-umpisa na yung informal campaign. And even the other side has also started actually putting together their slate. Nakikita natin yung PDP laban, tatawag na, ganyan-ganyan. Yung chances nyo, what are your predictions for your chances, considering the performance in particular nung nakaraang eleksyon ng
Well,
opposition?
the performance of the Ocho Derecho, sabi, that doesn't bother us because we are not liberal, we are not Ocho Derecho. What we have, we are going to present to the Filipino people not the most winnable candidate. We are not basing it on who is popular, but we will base it on who is the most capable candidate. We will make the capable candidate winnable. When we are together, we can do it as one.
Well, Attorney, that sounds really good. Pero how do you operationalize that to make the best candidate winnable versus getting the winnable candidate and making him your candidate with the right agenda? I mean, for practical reasons, I mean, you also have to overcome that.
With all due respect, wasn't that the same proposition of Ocho Derecho?
Well, I don't know. I was not part of Ocho Derecho. As I said, I'm not a liberal. I'm not even a card-bearing member of any political party, nor was I part of Ocho Derecho. All I'm saying is, ang gusto natin ipresenta sa taong bayan ay yung tamang capable. Hindi lang yung may qualification. Kasi yung qualification nasa constitution yan. Read or write lang yan. Philippine citizen, etc. Ang gusto natin yung capable. Alam mo ba yung pwesto na tinatakbuhan mo? Kaya mo bang patakbuhin yung gobyerno natin, yung bayan natin, sa posisyon na tinatakbuhan mo? At alam mo ba yung consequences na ginagawa mo once you come into office? Yan po ang mga kasama natin. At nandun na po yung sinasabi nga natin na democratic forces, we will stand by their track record. We will look at what did they say on EJK, what did they say on the West Philippine Sea, what did they say on the rule of law. So these things will all be checked, will all be looked into, their background, and we will present. And that's why we have these months to do the search and present to the Filipino people.
Brother Armin, let me be direct with my question. Is this coalition being built around Lenny Robredo? Is this being built around a presidential run of Lenny Robredo? If you're saying no, are you saying that you're open to supporting any other presidential candidate?
Of course. But to segue to the earlier question, in normal times, people are practical and we fall into the trap of traditional politics. So, magsa-survey, kung sino yung mataas sa survey, siya yung binibigyan ng pondo ng mga businessman dahil yung liyamado, yun ang mananalo, di ba? So, yun yung normal na sitwasyon. But our people has also shown that it is possible to make heroic choices. Noong panahon ni Marcos, lahat ng sinasabi ninyo, matatalo mo ba si Marcos? Nasa kanya yung kapangyarihan, nasa kanya yung pera, lahat ng taong magagaling, nakulong. Alam nyo, kung ganyan yung pag-iisip natin, talagang wala na tayong pupuntahan, wala na pupuntahan ng Pilipinas. Sa kangkungan na lang tayo pupulutin, di ba? But this is a different time. And what we're selling is actually hope. That yung anak ni Howie na palibot-libot sa kanya, that I can tell her, there is a future for you. And that's what we have. We don't have the money. We're running against people who are in power. Every other mayor, governor, are panning into power, logically, matatalo kami. But there is one thing that will never be defeated. It's that hope that says, hindi, kakayanin yan. Bakit si Chino Roses, nung walang pera, kumuha ng bote at humingi piso-piso? And this is a similar time. There are more people who have been killed in this administration than during the time of martial law. And our position is, of course, yun na nga sinabi nung tatlo nating eminent justices, no? And ambassador, they could have retired. Why will they even be part of this conveners group? But this is not the time to give up. And everything else will look like, talo na kayo eh. And I'm sure Nag-uumpisa na nga, binabatigas na nga kami ng trolls. But we will stand on the right, we will speak truth to power, and we will not give up on hope.
So,
We cannot
Brother,
afford to
Politically,
lose.
is this also an admission in a way that if you don't come together, siguradong walang mananalo from anyone in any opposition group at the rate this president has skyrocketed in terms of popularity? Naamin niyo yan?
Yeah, agree with that, Lucci. And just with 2016, we see the plurality of votes, and na-divide doon and nanalo a minority president. Same here. Kung hindi magsama-sama ulit, malamang mananalo na naman yung administrasyon o si Duterte kasi nga hindi nagsama-sama na naman ang democratic forces.
So you're confident na you can put together the opposition, mag-unite? Kasi sa tingin namin ngayon, medyo magulo yung ranks ng opposition eh. I mean, the ranks of the anti-Duterte, the factions, parang hindi siya nagkakasundo-sundo eh. You are confident that you can bring them together?
Alam mo, Ami, having the launch this morning is a victory enough. Back in July and August, nag-uusap lang kami ni Brother Armin. At sabi namin, paano kung pagsasamahin yung nasa kaliwa, si Nery Colmenares, for example? Paano ko siya ipupunta sa isang table with, for example, Sunny Trillanes? Pero nangyayari na po yan ngayon. Nakita natin na napagsama-sama namin. The mere fact na napagsama-sama natin itong lahat ng grupong ito to come to that launch, whether it is face-to-face or whether it is on Zoom, kasi ang daming challenges na nangyari dyan sa launch na yan. But then again, if you see that, today's launch is a victory in itself. That is step one. Second step is to choose the candidates. Third step is to win in 2022. And finally, give good governance to the Filipino people. That is the main objective of Isang Bayan.
But
So
sirs,
you
in the end po,
probably
in the end po,
Yeah,
how is the selection process going to be? I mean, in the end, kasi that's what it boils down to, that you're hoping to be able to choose or endorse somebody for the presidency or the vice presidency. Do we have any idea yet how this is going to go?
Yes, Ed, we will be collecting various data. No? The first data, we will have an online or people's search, no? That will be put up on our website. So lahat ho ng tao, lahat ho ng mamayang Pilipino, pwede ho silang mamili at mag-choose doon sa mga listahan ng kandidato na nakalagay doon. Second, of course, we cannot disregard the public polling from SWS, Pulse Asia, whatever other outfit it is. So that is also part of the data. Another part of the data is our interview. Sabi niyo na, nakausap na ba namin lahat ito? Of course, I will tell you that most of them, nakausap na namin. But the interviews and the conversations are ongoing because, of course, none of them have said categorically na admit sila na tatakbo sila. But one thing is sure that all of them agreed to participate in the selection process. And then, of course, the fourth one, meron tayong sinasabing due diligence. Kasi baka meron mga hindi natin nasabi, yung kanilang track record, yung kanilang mga hidden skeletons in the closet, titingnan po natin yan so that we will have a more universal choice come and presented to the Filipino people come 2022.
But how assured you are, how confident are you that your choice, I mean, you, Brother Armin, sila Justice Carpio, Justice Morales, how confident are you that your choices will be acceptable to all of these agrupations?
Well,
Diba? I mean, mag-aaway-aaway rin yan. Strange bedfellows nga kayo, as you admit, no?
Yung umpisa namin, Lucci, unlike the big political parties, is a real consultation on the ground. We have all of these people's organizations, those who are not just talkers, but those who are actually working on the ground. NGOs, foundations, who have been working on poverty, on issues like hunger, educational deficiencies, etc. And we will have a criteria that will ask them, what are your dreams for yourselves, for your sector? And what are your dreams for the country? And in that process, guided process, we will eventually ask them, then among the candidates, what kinds of personality types would be able to pursue those dreams. No? So, yung tunay na konsultasyon which will come from the ground, will be the source of that winning process. If they begin to start supporting a candidate there, our hope and the reality I think there is that they will vote for them because they will emerge from the ground rather than from up.
Brother, as an early gauge, I just want to understand yung participation, openness, consultation. We've been using a lot of terms. We've been consulting. They're open to participate in the process. Justice Carpio said you are considering certain names, including Vice President Leni Robredo, Mayor Isko Moreno, Senators Binay, Senator Poe. When he mentions these people as being considered, is that the same as saying these people are already in talks with you? Have you spoken with them? Are these people among the people who have said, yes, we will participate in your vetting and in your process?
Yes, Robbie, they have said they are part of the process. They have submitted themselves in the process and joined the process. And of course, syempre, at the end of the day, we can only hope that everybody will come to terms with their promise that whatever choice we have, that they will stick to that choice and that they would support whoever we choose at the end of the day. Because sabi ko nga, yung proseso na yung kasama rin sila. So hindi lang naman kami ang pipili. Sabi nga ni Brother Armin, guide lang kami. Ang pipiling nito, it would be the people, it is a people's assembly or people's choice that will come with the proper candidates come 2022.
Well,
Now, I don't know how deliberate that listing was by Justice Carpio, yung apat na binanggit ko. Can you mention other names who are similarly situated and similarly contextualized as part of the process? Let me bring in those other names that we mentioned earlier. What about Senator Ping Lacson, who is floated as a presidential also? What about Senator Trillanes? Anybody from the left, for that matter? Can you name other people, just so people have a gauge of, how wide and how ambitious is this coalition?
I think Senator Ping, ex-Senator Sani are more than welcome to join the process. I think Senator Sani already expressed that he is with the process. So any other individuals, I would think, let's say, I heard that Chair Jokno might join the process as well. I heard also that Tito Soto might be considered as well. So these are all considerations. These are all nominees. So hindi pa ito yung list. That's why we're saying we have some people already, but we are still open to other individuals as long as I said, Robbie, their stand is clear against EJK. Their stand is clear on the sovereign rights on the West Philippine Sea. Their stand is clear on the rule of law. Their stand is clear on corruption, on dynasties, and education, and let's say in the address of this pandemic. We have to make sure that their stand is clear and that we have a democratic agenda for them compared to a more dictatorial agenda that we have right now.
Well, Attorney and Brother, sorry, I really have to squeeze in one more question. You've been talking about a process, and of course, any process ends with a selection. And in this case, I suppose you're talking about a vote in choosing who will run as president or vice president or the senators. So in the end of this process, who gets to choose who gets to run? Is there going to be a committee, and who chooses the committee, for example? I suppose that's really what interests a lot of people. In the end, how is the selection made? Of course, you have talked about the process, pero in the end po, sinong boboto?
Well, let me venture at answering that. The process includes a very important element, and that is a time where all the candidates who have decided to run, because Roby, one of the difficulties why we cannot expand the names is because some of those whom we have talked with are undecided whether they will even run. So that's a big if, no? But after people have made that decision, personal decision, o sige, parang open ako na tumakbo bilang presidente o bilang vice president.
Hat in the ring.
We would want to bring all of those principles together. I think that is a key element in the selection process. because they have to begin to trust each other. It's trust building. They have to become realistic and say, sino ba yung mataas ang possibility na manalo? So there will be, in one sense, a heart-to-heart talk among those who are seriously thinking of running. And then that is where I think that will be a critical moment when they will say, sige,
Putol.
Oh, naputol ata si brother.
Okay.
Okay.
Naputol.
Okay, well,
Si attorney ba nandiyan pa?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Attorney, hingit ko na lang yung question. What about Justice Carpio? How is he being considered here? Is he just a convener or are we
Well,
seeing him as a
yeah.
potential candidate?
Justice Carpio is a convener, and he has said repeatedly that he is not running, and his sole agenda is to combine the democratic forces, to unite the democratic forces, so that we have a solid, united, one slate to be submitted to the electorate come 2022.
okay. Okay, Attorney Howie Calleja, and of course, we'd like to thank also Brother Armin Luistro. Gentlemen, it's really good to see you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Ingat po.
Maraming salamat po. Salamat po.
We'll just go into a break, so please stay with us.
Vaccine supplies for the private sector under tripartite agreements are set to arrive in the third quarter. And for Cabinet Secretary Carlo Nograles, that's perfect timing.
The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry is calling on the government to allow the private sector to buy vaccines directly.
For anything that the private sector and LGUs import will be a savings. So I think it behoves the government to really make it easy for the private sector to be able to import the requirements of their people.
Kailangan maging partido pa rin sa kasunduan ng gobyerno dahil kasama doon sa kasunduan na kung merong side effect ang bakuna, gobyerno ang mananagot.
Welcome back to the Chiefs on One News. We continue our conversation, and now with us is Ambassador Benedict Yujuico, President of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Good evening, Ambassador, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Oh, good evening. I'm glad to be here.
Good evening, sir.
Okay.
Glad to be here.
Yes, sir. We're glad that you're here. Sir, we'd like to ask you about this proposal of the PCCI with government. We understand that you want, the PCCI wants to buy vaccines, I suppose, unilaterally. That's what we want to ask you. Can we have more details about your proposal and how different is this vaccine purchase proposal from the existing tripartite agreements that are required by the government? Ano ang pagkakaiba, bale?
Well, let me backtrack a little bit. Several months ago, for example, I was in discussions with the ambassador of India, and Ambassador Shambhuko Maran, and we were talking about the efforts of India in terms of producing the vaccines against COVID-19. And I'm not sure if you are aware, but the largest serum manufacturer in the world is actually the Serum Institute of India. So we discussed the possibility of actually securing COVID-19 serum from India. But that was 2 months ago, and there were a lot of concerns being expressed by government and other sectors about whether private sector will be allowed to actually directly import And the long and short of it is that we kind of lost 2 months because if, in fact, action was done at that time, then we could have been getting deliveries at this time. So again, the call I made yesterday was to please government allow us or allow the private sector to import directly because we are aware of possible sources in the world that will be able to deliver the vaccine that we need, not only on a timely basis, but also cheaper than what I have seen being offered so far.
Pero
Sir,
desisyon
if I
po
may
ba yan
follow
ng
up on
gobyerno
Ed's
o
question.
desisyon po yan ng mismong manufacturer? Kasi yan po ang sinasite ng gobyerno, no, na hindi pa naman for commercial quantities ang mga vaccines na yan. Kaya dapat ang managot kung may adverse effect gobyerno. So in short, requirement yon ng manufacturers at hindi ng gobyerno. Yan po rin ba ang basa nyo dyan?
The requirement, ito yung requirement ng, for example, US, different from the requirement of India. Yung India, they have, of course, also a need for some kind of guarantee. But
Yes.
sila, this is not a top priority item. They were willing to start discussions on availability. And because the availability was good, the pricing was good, we thought that we could actually secure some quantities from them. I'll just give you an example. Itong India, for example, has exported 37% of what they have produced. They have exported as gifts, libre lang, to all other countries of the world, no? So yung attitude nila is, I'm not gonna just sell to you. We are going to help, lesser fortunate or lesser developed countries to try to get out of this COVID. Somehow, India's attitude very close, very open to our government. Pero tayo, we were very slow in actually dealing with what we call emergency use authorization. Sana inumpisahan na natin yon, nakita na nila, and then now it's authorized. So now we can start using it. So I'm just saying is, please involve the private sector. We are not claiming we know better than the government, but we can help. We can help, I think.
Yeah, on that, let me follow up lang on Ed's earlier question about the tripartite agreement and the difference between a direct order from the private sector. Does the tripartite agreement, what is it about it specifically, the current mechanisms under the tripartite agreement, that does not work? And for that matter, be more constructive, what might be a simple tweak, if any, that can be done with the existing mechanisms that can facilitate this?
Robis, nung umpisa yan, kasi merong patakaran na, okay, private sector, you can import, pero kalahati, bibigay mo sa gobyerno, kalahati sa'yo. Pero yung kalahating nasa'yo, kami pa rin, government will determine sino ang makakatanggap. So, nagumpisang magulo. Now, over the past several months, it has evolved now to the point where siguro wala nang kalahati-kalahati. Pwede nang magpunta sa inyong lahat yan, pero hindi pa rin maliwanag, for example, that automatically you will be given authorization to import by the government even if you are importing already yung mga compliant vaccines. There is no clear rule that, okay, private sector, if you do 1, 2, 3, pwede na kayong mag-import. That is hopefully what we will find out from the government. Sana maliwanag na ganon para we can implement or we can do or we can help.
Pero antemano po ba, hiningi nyo po ba yun? Did you ask antemano po, beforehand, did you ask them, even beforehand, what requirements they would impose for you to be able to import directly? Hiningi nyo ho ba yun?
No, not directly. We were told that these are the conditions if you wish to import directly. So
why are you even thinking of that now? Did Did they suddenly open up to the possibility of you importing? Or is this something that you're just beginning to explore now with them?
Siguro the realization by the government sector that perhaps private sector can really help, it came slowly. Now, hindi yung all of a sudden, bigla, right from the start, alam nila. I think they are starting to realize, now sige nga, baka nga makakatulong itong mga ito sa atin.
In fact, I think nauna pa sila sa national government na mag-procure. This was opposed by the health professionals themselves kasi sabi nila, one, mawawala daw yung economies of scale, baka daw magmahal yung vaccine, tapos another, magkakaroon daw ng maldistribution of vaccines kasi yung mas merong means will be ahead sa vaccination. Ano po yung masasabi nyo? Yan din ba sinabi sa inyo ng gobyerno or are you considering those arguments as well?
No, insofar as pricing is concerned, hindi naman gugulo ang pricing. Actually, in fact, we have been asking for a very transparent advice on ano ba yung mga prices na talagang nakukuha nyo. Because even if you go to the internet, you can check what the prices are being sold for this in Thailand, no? And people are wondering, bakit ganitong presyo sa Pilipinas? Are there middlemen here that are trying to make money out of this? Hindi pwede yon. Hindi naman dapat yon. Dapat, this is corporate social responsibility. We understand that costs have to be covered. But kami sa PCCI, ang posture namin is, hey, we have to save the country here. Tumubo kayo ng konti or cover your costs, pero wag naman doble. Because look, I'm telling you, yung vaccine na sinasabi ko sa inyo, nagawa ng Bharat Biotech in India. Sa India, it cost $3 per shot. $3. Magkano $3? 150 pesos. Dito, magkano? 1,000? Bakit 1,000 dito? Allow the competition to enter. Allow the private sector to enter. Magpasok sila para itong mga presyong matataas masyado has to be brought down. So I don't believe that tataas ang presyo pag marami ang participants. Baliktad. Pag maraming participants, I think there will be price pressure. Insofar as prioritization is concerned, this is not what is gonna happen. We are talking about private sector like PCCI. Ang membership namin, MSME, mahihirap yung mga yan Tutulungan namin sila para mapunta sa kanila. And ano ba yung empleyado ang gusto nilang ma-protect. So it is not a priority for the owner of the business of MS. No, it is to protect their workers that they want to be able to purchase directly for the workers.
Mr. Yujuico, i-clarify ko lang, the vaccine that you are negotiating to procure is the Covaxin, no?
Yes.
Bharat.
Yeah.
It's not the AstraZeneca because Serum Institute is also producing AstraZeneca.
Yeah. No, it is the COVAX, yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'll just mention, itong Bharat is very advanced, no? In fact, they are developing a nasal spray, which they think in several months they might be able to get it authorized. So they're pretty okay. So they're
Actually,
80%.
Yes.
But Ambassador,
pero
kasi
nag-submit na ba yan ng application with the FDA? Kasi nga, sir, meron pang mga reglamente ang FDA, no? It's not just a matter of, say, Galvez allowing you to import. It's really also an FDA regulation.
In the case of Bharat, there is a local agent of Bharat. There are also technical people from Bharat who are already here in Manila. Actually, they made a presentation to PCCI sa akin. So alam ko nandito sila. They have also told me nag-apply na sila sa FDA. So, what government needs to do is maybe prod FDA. Uy, dali-dalian nyo nga. Marami na kasing masyado na ang infection dito. Yung ating infection tumataas na. Pwede ba dali-dalian nyo? Ano ba yung ginagawa nyo riyan? Total, sa ibang bayan, okay naman Siguro, okay na rin dito yan. But
Yes, sir.
I'm not saying be careless about it. Well, what I'm saying is, what's taking you so long? This is a matter of life and death. We need this vaccine.
Yes, sir.
Please,
But sir, but the
Mr.
thing is,
I wanted to put
Secretary
a
Roque
part,
already...
Pwede ko lang pong, sige, go ahead, Bok.
But,
Sorry.
sir, but Secretary Roque already said kanina na we still are tied to the formula of using tripartite agreements. In the end, parang sasabi ni Secretary Roque, no, we still have to go with the system that we already have in place. My question to you is this, is there any middle ground? Is it possible to still do a tripartite agreement and still go through your contacts? For example, in this case, yung Barat.
Right, sinabi ba, did Secretary Roque explain to us why hindi pwedeng...
Ang sabi lang po niya, only the national government is allowed to deal with the manufacturers.
I think we deserve a logical explanation para maintindihan natin because it is more logical na payagan yung mag-import lahat para makatulong sa bayan. Hindi yung hindi pwede and then walang explanation. I don't agree with that.
Yes, sir. Well, this is what he said.
Explanation naman niya is di ba nga, this was not intended for commercial distribution precisely because there's no guarantee, no?
Alam mo, ang implication ng commercial distribution is you're making money, no? Hindi naman gano'n ang intent dito, no? In fact, hospitals should be able to import directly as well kung gusto nila, no? And people who are involved in CHIEFS Barat, for example, yung tao nila rito, kailangan pakiusapan din sila na please be reasonable and realistic about the prices. You know, when I met with them, this is exactly what I told them also because they were asking the help of PCCI and I said, I will help you on condition that your pricing is geared towards yung talagang affordable yung pricing nyo. Huwag naman masyadong mataas. So,
is it possible that they were reluctant to facilitate the processing of applications of those vaccines because there was a general preference for other vaccines, particularly Pfizer and AstraZeneca, and there was no public faith in vaccines in general, and specifically on vaccines like the ones from India and Russia and China, of course. What do you think?
Well, yes. In the beginning, ang mamamayan takot. Pag galing sa China, ayaw nila. No? Hahanapin nila yung Pfizer and then AstraZeneca. And then nadinig nila, oops, merong problema yung AstraZeneca. Doon sa Pfizer na lang. Tapos hintayin natin yung Moderna and maybe Johnson & Johnson. But we are already beyond the point of, sige, maghintay tayo. In fact, you know, people repeatedly tell us, well, let me just complete the thought. Kung basahin lang yung report ng New York Times in terms of yung efficacy of the COVID drugs, yung made in China, the first three were surprisingly made in China vaccines. And I believe India in that ranking was number 5 and number 6. No? And so people are now starting to realize that perhaps we were very much prejudiced when we disregard. Ayaw natin ng India, ayaw natin yung China. Pero kung gusto natin mabuhay, actually, if we want to prevent serious illness, if we want to prevent hospitalization, if we want to prevent death, the advice is go get vaccine. No matter where it comes from, whether it is China, whether it is India, whether US, go get vaccine.
Magaling yung pharmaceutical industry ng India. But who were you talking with in our government? Mr. Yujuico, yung sinabi niya 2 months ago pa kayo nag-negotiate. Who did you meet with exactly?
Sa?
About the importation. Sino po yung kausap niyo sa gobyerno natin?
Meron kaming representative sa IATF eh. So, siya yung kumakausap diretso. Hindi ako ang kumakausap diretso. So
you asked the IATF?
Yes. Oh. Also, hindi lang IATF, no? Parallel yung aming usapan. Kasi maski yung Minister of Health ng India, si Dr. Harashvardhan Goel, sinulatan ko rin yun eh. Humihingi din ako ng kanyang support para magkaroon ng vaccine dito. So, we were actually talking to our government, to Indian government, to the Indian ambassador here, and to the representatives of Barat as well.
And sir, your proposal, wala pang direct feedback that you've heard of, itong proposal nyo ngayon?
Well, wala pa. So, I hope that you know, alam mo, I want to give credit to the government as well, ano. Nakikinig din sila no. Like for example, last September, we proposed to President Duterte na kung pwede i-modify niya yung executive order governing internet connectivity using satellite connections, because we are the only country in the whole of Asia requiring a congressional franchise for this. So I wrote to him, sabi ko, ay nako, after 2 or 3 months, sabi ko, ay wala, nakalimutan na tayo. But I was so surprised, last week we were informed na pinirmahan ni President Duterte yung bagong executive order 127 allowing now without congressional franchise satellite connectivity to be implemented. So that means, hey, ang government para sa akin, they listen. If you make good suggestion and if we push, just like itong satellite connectivity, napakalaking epekto nito. This means lahat ng sulok sa Pilipinas, pwede mong lagyan ng satellite ngayon at internet para naman for education, for agriculture, for all of these things, magkakaroon tayo ng pag-asa. So, the government is listening. Insofar as this is concerned, itong suggestion namin sa vaccine, nung isang araw lang namin sinabi ito So I'm hopeful that...
Huwag naman sana abutin ng 3 buwan yan, sir.
Hindi. Yung satellite connectivity, September something ko.
Yun na nga.
September, October. Pero in the end, nangyari din, no? Nangyari din. So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Maybe because of the urgency of this matter, I think there's going to be a quicker reaction here.
Yes, sir. Although your first feelers were that they were made 2 months ago, so malay mo. Okay.
Let's hope.
Maraming salamat po, Ambassador Benedict
Maraming
Yujuico,
salamat po.
the President of the
Thank
Philippine
you,
Chamber
sir.
of Commerce and Industry.
Malaking problema natin ngayon sa so be safe and be careful. Okay,
You
bye-bye.
too.
Salamat po.
Ingat po. Thank you po. And that'll be all for this Thursday edition of the Chiefs. We hope we'll discuss here. We'll keep the conversation going. Now, before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Ed Lingao.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Robbie Alampay, and we are One News.